So how was the polar plunge today?
Freezing.
It was freezing cold. 31 degrees outside. That water was cold. But we have a podcast to do.
Yep, let's go. Welcome to Long Haul Marriage.
All right, and welcome back. I'm with my beautiful wife, Jamie. Marriage part 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just for the sake of time, we got to just get into it. Let's see, we're going to talk about the Corban story today, the Corban years, just kind of the events leading up to the birth of our third child, Corban, who ended up passing shortly after his second birthday. A lot of people have heard, many people listening may not know that we lost our son about 24 years ago now. So lots of healing between, the time he passed and now, but for sure, the hardest thing we've ever gone through. Hopefully it's the hardest thing we will ever go through, but you never know. Mm-hmm. And my prayer is just very few parents have to endure that loss because of how profound and significant it is and how it dramatically can change your life. They say 85% of couples divorce after losing children. Wow, we now know why, right? Having gone through something like that. But I think what I want to ask first, you hear people say, if we had it to do over, or if I had to go through that, I wouldn't change a thing. Because of the profound, let's say, significantly better life that they have now because of the thing that they went through, or the lesson that they learned, or the evolved consciousness, or the priorities, all the good stuff that they have because of the thing. So obviously, we wouldn't have wanted to lose our son, but when you hear people say that, I remember seeing Michael J. Fox say something about, like, literally, if he had to trade having Parkinson's versus being the guy that he used to be before that diagnosis, he literally wouldn't trade places. And you're like, really? Then when you go through something like this, talk about that. Do you understand when people make those statements, what they mean?
Yeah, I do. And it just depends on the day for me. There are some days that I'm like, yeah, you don't really have a choice in it. So you just have to tell yourself and get into a good place about it enough times to where, like, you actually maybe believe it. Like, I wouldn't I wouldn't have traded it for the world, or, what we have now, or what it brought to our family, like the richness, the deepness that it brought to our family, what it has done for our marriage, like how it has just sealed us. It's hard because you don't know if all that stuff would have happened anyway. Like, we're big family people anyway. So could we still have, like, sometimes I'm like, let's make a deal. Could I just still have Corban back and our marriage that's strong and our family that just has this perspective and, just has such a value on family time and how things are so temporary. Like, could we do both? Right. Can I pick both? Can I have him and have all that good stuff, all that good life change? So it's hard. There are days that I'm like, yeah, you know what? This has brought some really great things into our lives, But is there a day that I think I would not want to have Corban back? Or I don't wonder, like, what my 26-year-old son would look like. What would he act like? What would he be doing? What would he be pursuing? What are some of his passions? Would he be dating? I mean, all that stuff that a mom would always wonder, that's always with me. So can I pick both? I want the good stuff that it brought us, and I want him back.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, no, you can't pick both.
Okay.
I so wish you could.
Yeah.
I so wish you could. But no, I get that. I always say, and we'll, dive in. And sorry, ma'am, my caffeine hasn't kicked in yet. So
that's okay. I need a Kleenex already. So.
Oh, well, there they are right there, baby.
Yeah.
Hey. So yeah, that's always surprising, right? The tender things that come up when we talk about this. Sometimes it seems like this, you talk about it just matter-of-factly, and you think about your feelings, but then sometimes you just feel your feelings. And I love in here, we're giving each other permission to just kind of go there and feel how we feel. So do you mind telling me kind of what that's coming up right now, what you're feeling? Just what got you?
Yeah, it's weird. It depends on the day. I mean, I share the story of Corban a lot.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
sometimes I can share it and it feels like I'm talking about someone else's life.
Right.
And then other times I share it as if it happened 2 months ago
Mm.
or 2 years ago,
Hmm.
not 24 years ago, you know? So it's weird how it just hits me at different times. But like yesterday after church, I got to pray with a sweet friend of mine who didn't lose her son, but her son was in NICU and had a lot of problems, a lot of health problems. And they didn't know. They didn't know if they were going to lose him. And so she came up to pray and she just said, it's been a year since,
Hmm.
the diagnosis and all that. And so it's the whole, your body keeps the score, your body remembers, like you just, whether you want to or not, you're like, why am I feeling this anxiety,
Hmm.
And
That
so anyway,
anniversary rolls around, that
yeah,
season, and your body
your
remembers it.
body just
Hmm.
knows.
Hmm.
And so I think I was kind of tender about it yesterday as I prayed with her, going, girl, that's been a year. It's been 24 for me. And what comes up in me is really surprising. So, I get really sentimental around, I mean, his birthday was January 31st, and then he died on March 17th. I think we're smack dab in the middle of that. So we just were thinking about his birthday in January and then now kind of anticipating like this was the season, like here we are right at Valentine's. This was the season that he was kind of amping up with not doing well, where
Uh-huh.
his symptoms kind of started catching up to him. So we lived every day like not knowing, is this going to be our last? And we had known that for a while, but this was like really amping up. So I guess there's probably something in my body, even though I'm not consciously thinking like, oh, I mean, now I am because we're talking about it. I get super sentimental and pretty tender
Mhm.
and teary. And then if I stop and be present and think, okay, what's happening in my body right now? Or, okay, what season are we in? What month is this? I'm like, oh, of course. So this is the time between when he turned 2 and then, March 17th when he passed. So this was a really kind of big season for us with lots of deep, deep emotions that probably no matter how long you work on it, you do your stuff, you're healed, you've experienced some freedom from some of that deep grief. There's a part of me that just thinks that will never go away. He's such an important person in our life. I don't want it to go away. I don't want to just go, oh, out of sight, out of mind, like I do some things, it's our son, and so
Yeah.
I think even your body like helps you honor the importance of that person in your life without you even like, I need to just stop and be still and honor this. Your body just starts honoring it by your grief or your tears or your tenderness or, your
Yeah.
agitation, whatever comes up. I think it's important, So I guess that's what's coming up for me is that it's just, I'm remembering that.
Yeah. Thank you for all that. I didn't know what all we were going to talk about today, or
Mhm.
besides just telling, the story. But
Yeah.
yeah, I feel it too. And I mean, and we obviously we're different, and we feel differently. We feel different things at different times. But yeah, my body remembers it for sure at this time of year when you've had a bout of serious like clinical depression, right? They say you're
Mhm.
75%
Mhm.
likely to have it again. And yeah, for me, I think it's definitely a seasonal thing that comes on me, And if you've had it, it's not even this season you feel it. I mean, I can just feel it coming on whenever it comes on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because I'm just so familiar with it. But this
Mhm.
time it's like, oh, yeah.
Mhm.
But back to what you said, it reminded me of the word closure. And I listened to a podcast one time, and it was, I think, Rob Bell talking to some funeral director, and just how we're just so horrible at grieving in the West and really looking at and embracing part of life that is death. And he said, who made up the word closure? Like, what? Closure from what? I just love the way, and I get how you don't want to, set up this shrine and be always that you're just so focused on that person who's not here. And, it's almost like in a very unhealthy way. But that whole, we're not going to speak of that. We just move on. I love the way we have the memorials set up in our lives. We have the altars, if you will, and that we can go and we can commemorate, we can remember, we can celebrate, we can be sad. Once a year, I'm not going to be posting on social media pretty much anyway, but once a year, you're going to make such a special post about Corban. Friends will remember and check in on us, March 17th. They will, one sweet friend has literally made, and I'm not going to say her name because she would not want that, every single year for the last 24 years on March 17th. I don't care where we are, that chocolate delight dessert will show up on our porch on March 17th.
I'll say her name. Thank you, Tina.
There you go. Thanks, Tina.
Oh, so sweet.
It's just so, and yeah, so that integrating that into your life, we carry it with us and we carry him with us, and we have the memories, and we can laugh and we can cry, and he's never gone, right?
Yeah.
When we say that the spirit of Corban, right? It is. It's like, so what is the spirit of Corban? That joyful smile and that laugh and those little giggles and just his sweet, sweet spirit. It's awesome to always have that and to be able to remember fondly. And so some people would say you never get over it, right? And I would say, what does getting over it mean? Again, so I don't think we have to have closure. Let's integrate that person and that loss and that life into who we are. Do you have to medicate in an unhealthy way for the rest of your life? So here we are. God bless anyone who's gone through a loss like this, and they did end up turning to drugs or alcohol to cope. It's something that's very destructive in their life, right? No judgment there. God bless them. I always say, God, he wouldn't say, I'm damning you to hell. He'd say, man, God bless, you've been in hell. Like, let me get you out, right? I think the miracle is that you and I, we did not divorce because we did grieve in very different ways. And the depression, can take you out, and the separation and just those dark nights of the soul where you're doing your thing and I'm doing mine and we go our own way. We can, again, come back and touch on that some. We didn't medicate with drugs and alcohol, and it didn't take us out, right? One of the good news, just talking about this, you can move on. People say, well, time heals. And I go, no. Time is just more time to be sick. Healing heals. And so how do you heal? You have to grieve. So we had to learn to grieve. Nobody knows how to do it. And you can Google the steps and, hey, what about what order? How long does it take? It takes as long as it takes. It's literally going head first, face to face with that pain and letting yourself feel every bit of it, not locking it away, not medicating it away, not ignoring it, but allowing it to hurt like really, really bad, and allowing the community around you to come in and to carry that hurt and to carry that burden. Even though there are those dark nights of the soul that are just you.
Yeah.
It's opening up and letting people literally carry you when you can't move.
Yeah. Something else that I think makes it, I've felt it kind of coming on, and almost my brain is like keeping a day tally of when will be the time. But now with our sweet grandbaby Ruthie Jean, who, we talk about nonstop, she is almost the exact age that Corban was when he died. And so that countdown clock in my head is like watching her. Nothing's wrong with her, but watching her and thinking back to how did we do it? Like I can't even, it's almost like I don't even want to speak it, but as grandparents, how that would feel, how devastating that loss would feel to us. And I'm realizing like I was barely keeping my head above water. And so I couldn't really think a lot about how it was affecting my parents or how it was affecting your parents. It did cross my mind. Now I have a whole different perspective of that Then I think about Chandler and Ryan, and I think we were those kids.
Mhm.
How did those kids navigate those horrific waters? Like, I don't know.
Mhm.
You just do what you need to do during the time. And I know this may mean something different to everybody, but I feel like when the time comes, there is a certain kind of grace that you're given to kind of walk through it, even though it's still ugly and ragged and horrible and the worst thing you can imagine. I just think something kicks in for you just to deal.
I remember thinking, like, and when you said that, I've said this many times and used that word, I couldn't navigate. Like, I've got 2 other kids. So when he passed, I guess we're going to do this kind of in reverse order.
Yeah.
I love it. Hey,
It's
here we
okay.
are. We're
Okay.
halfway through. So let's just keep going. Chandler, when Corbin passed, Chandler was 5
5.
and Christian was 3. And so we had a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I remember thinking, my lights out depression. When I wrote that song Broken Wings, that was about
Mhm.
1 year in, and I was walking around the house. And matter of fact, we should share the link to Broken Wings on this
Yeah.
episode. We'll do that
Yeah,
in the
that's
notes.
good.
But I was just walking around the house all day, basically crying. And then I'd sit down at the piano and I'd hack out one line, then I'd walk around crying some more, and then sit down and hack out another line. And it was just a prayer. It was just, God, I'm going crazy. You better throw me a bone here because I can't do it. I need you.
Mhm.
And I'm not hearing you. I'm not feeling you. This whole those who wait upon the Lord,
Yeah.
it will rise up. And I remember, wings of eagles and all that's you'll what is it? Run and not grow weary, walk and not faint, or
Mhm.
something like that. I'd have to look up. Is that
Yeah.
Isaiah 53?
Yeah.
But it was I can't even walk,
Mhm.
much less, run or mount up with wings like eagles and fly. And when you're dead, you can't revive yourself. Someone outside of you has to come and say, clear, at the paddle, or give you mouth to mouth. So that was my deal. I mean, lights out depression, my
Mhm.
give a crap broke, and I was floating out in the middle of nowhere for 3 years.
Mhm.
And I remember waking up and no land in sight. Like picture Tom Hanks in Castaway. You're on that raft.
Mhm.
You're literally in the middle of nowhere. You talk about disoriented. I just didn't know which end was up. And so I remember thinking, I can't navigate myself. And I thought, bless this little 5-year-old and 3-year-old's heart. They're screwed. Like, I mean, I thought, God, you're
Mhm.
going to have to raise these
Yes.
kids. They're going to be on somebody's couch by the time they're 30. Like, please help me because my dad was non-functional. Like, where did he go? But you're right. God gave us grace. I mean, it was the grace he gave us to still plug in and be there and be present with them. It was the grace when we weren't there and couldn't plug
Mhm.
in and be there for them.
Mhm.
It was the community, again, the surrogate mothers and fathers who came
Mhm.
around and helped us with.
I don't know who
It's like,
I look back and I
good
think,
night.
I don't know. I mean, I have a sneaking suspicion, but family and friends that would just take Chandler and
Yeah.
Christian, and I'm like, they're safe, they're good. I don't know, they're probably eating lots of Happy Meals, whatever,
Mm.
but they just took them, and like, oh, someone cleaned my house. Oh, look, someone organized my pantry. Oh,
Yeah.
someone brought us a meal or left us, here's some gas money,
Yeah.
underneath my pillow that a friend left. And anyway, it was just a million little things that were giant to us that
Yeah.
I can't imagine. But, I know we would do it for other friends, but that's one thing that I think we've learned is when someone's walking through something like that, and you do a tiny little thing, it seems like nothing. Like this is a drop in the ocean of what they need. But 24 years later, we sit here and I'm like literally brought to tears thinking of all those little things that people did for us.
Hmm. Yeah.
They were huge.
Yeah. I think about just John and Jackie Chalk, Toby and Micah Slough. I just think of Steve and Michelle Cole. Anyway, I don't even want to start naming, sorry,
Yeah.
because the list goes on and on
Yeah.
and on. Just and all of your family,
Yeah.
my family. It's
Mhm.
just, oh my gosh.
Mhm.
So here we were, these kids, and we had a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. Like, so Christian was when he was 11 months old. We had Corbin.
Yep. We had Irish twins, didn't we?
Yeah. So So here,
Oh,
I mean, Chandler was healthy, Christian was healthy, and here we had just number 3. We never found out, if it was a boy or a girl beforehand. We
no
were always going to
gender
be
reveal
surprised.
parties here.
Nope. And we were always going to be surprised. And we were going to be surprised on this one. But I mean, you had your normal checkups along the way, and there was no issues. There was no warnings. There's no like suspicions of anything. And so, yeah, number 3 was on the way. We were excited. And shortly after, and I was at the birth of all 3, right, with my little video cam, the camcorder back in those days. And so when Corban was born, I was there, and then I remember the nurses quickly kept picking him up and kind of doing his arms, and I noticed he was a little. The term is cyanotic. He was a little blue tinted, right? But I'm thinking, hey, he's a newborn. They're always ugly. And they kept doing picking his arms up, and and he'd already done his cry, and they spanked his bottom and all that stuff. But I remember finally asking. I said, "So is he okay?" And she said, "Oh, he's probably just a little wet." And I go, "What does that mean?" Well, his lungs. He's really. I don't remember his weight.
I think he was like 8'12".
So big baby.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
He was a big boy.
But so I thought, what do you mean wet? Well, maybe his lungs aren't fully developed yet. And sometimes they just maybe they've got a little congestion they need to clear, or maybe his lungs need to catch up a little bit. But it's probably nothing. Well, long story short, fast forward just really not that long, but maybe 20, 25, 30 minutes. And all of a sudden there is our pediatrician standing there. And I'm like, wait, what's he doing here? And it was just so bizarre. And he has this look on his face, and he comes over and it's, "Brian, hey, can I talk to you?" And I said, "Yeah, this doesn't sound good." And he goes, "Well, so Corban, this could be nothing, right? It could be just that he needs to cough and clear his lungs and they need to develop a little bit more, or he could have a serious heart condition. And Baylor Grapevine doesn't have the correct diagnostic equipment to do the testing.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to care flight him immediately to Cook Children's or to Dallas, Children's Medical. Where do you want to go?" And that was the first little bit of, oh, okay. So we were on one track, and now we've switched tracks, and we're on another track.
And I was being sewn up from a C-section.
You were going to be in recovery.
I was doing my deal, and
Yep.
then you were out there finding out that good news.
And so I choose Cook Children's, and they start getting Corban ready for a care flight journey. I go out and tell some of the friends that are literally in the waiting room to celebrate the birth of number 3. And probably keeping our little kids, and so friends and family, and I just go tell them what's happening. And I remember them, once they get him ready, it looks like an incubator, but it's a little transport before he gets on the helicopter. They wheeled him into your room. And I remember you just reaching over and, touching the outside of that little enclosure, maybe even reaching up and touching his hand.
Mm-hmm.
That was heartbreaking to watch. Yeah, and I remember asking, can I go with him? Can I ride? And they said, "Well, no, we don't do that." Here we go. So they care flight Corban to Cook Children's. I get in the truck with Toby and John, John Chalk and Toby Slough, and we head over to Cook Children's, and they're trying to reassure me all the way there. And honestly, at this point, I don't borrow trouble, but I was definitely, concerned. This was something brand new to us. So we get off the elevator on the second floor and literally walk around the corner, in ICU, NICU was one side, PICU was the other side. And I walk around to the NICU side. The phone was ringing. That rings out into the open, like atrium or the hallway there. And they said, "Hey, is there a Brian Hackney here?" And I said, "Yeah, that's me." I just literally walked up, and they said, "Okay, hey, they want to see you inside." So I go in, scrub, and literally the guy meets me right there at the door and says, "Are you Brian?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "My name is Dr. Turbeville. I'm the intensivist here, and your baby has severe congenital heart disease. We have a relatively good chance of saving his life." I mean, those were his first words. And again, I'll never forget those.
And then that's when you...
Yeah. His mouth is moving, and like in Star Trek, the old, like when warp speed was happening, this rush and this tunnel vision and this like, wait, did somebody get the name of the Mack truck that just ran me over? that happened for, I don't know, a few seconds, and I just felt totally sick and in shock. And but then the way, and it maybe it's my brain, or maybe it's just human brain to kick into literally survival mode. So now I'm just like, it's this weird, just intense reversal from this fuzzy, I want to faint, to I'm locked in and I'm noticing every like
Mhm.
detail, and things are in sharp, clear focus, and I'm listening to every syllable. And he starts writing down on a napkin what's going on with Corbin. And long story short, he had a rare disease, very, very rare, called transposition of the great arteries. So TGA. So the coronary arteries that are supposed to be attached to the left ventricle, they were on the right, and the pulmonary that are supposed to be on the right, going to the lungs, they were on the left. And so there's this little part in vitro where this time where the heart is supposed to rotate, and then they come down and attach, and his didn't rotate, and so they attached to the wrong side. So he is cyanotic. He's not getting oxygen rich blood to the
Mhm.
entire body. Thank God early in their life, they had this little hole that's open in the heart that allows oxygen rich blood to pass back and forth between the left and the right ventricle. But that's going to close up shortly, maybe in 72 to 3 days to 4 days. So
So his
they
plumbing
have to do
switched.
open
Mhm.
heart surgery. But the first thing they have to do is go in, kind of like an angioplasty surgery, a balloon septostomy, I think they call it, where they go in, they inflate the balloon, and they rip it through that hole to tear it, just to keep it open, right? So that he basically gets oxygen to his brain, so he won't have any brain damage. And he didn't have any brain damage, thank you,
Mhm.
Lord, even though his O2 sats were so low. So they do that little procedure. So in the next 4 days, while they're, because he's quote sick, they have to get him as healthy, and he's so fragile at this point. So they have to get him as healthy as possible to do the open heart procedure called an arterial switch. Now, the bad news was he had this rare disease. The good news was he had a high, 95% success rate on this arterial switch. So the good news was they could fix it. There was a cure. And again, with 95% success rate and Dr. Fox and Hindley, we had this incredible
Mhm.
team that just happened to be at Cook Children's, and they were literally the best in the country.
Mhm.
And they were going to be doing the deal. And once you're done with that surgery, you can ride roller coasters, play football. Like physiologically, you're fixed. You're done. So many of the quote heart babies that we met while we were in ICU, and the families,
Mhm.
they had to have staged surgeries, and they're
Mhm.
building this and they're building that, and depending on the defect, there's so many different things, and they have to wait, and it could be years, and then the mortality rate increases as they go. We just felt incredibly lucky to have this kind of defect, right?
Mhm.
So at 4 days old, they saw into his little sternum, and they do the arterial switch, and Fox and Hindley perform an incredible surgery. It goes as good as it could go. And 12 days later, he comes home, or I guess 8 days later. So I think about 12 days after his birth, Corbin comes home. To fast forward through a lot of this, just to get
Mhm.
to the medical part, month 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, he's doing a lot of checkups. Well, then the checkup, the post-op checkups, so we had this cardiologist, Dr. Case, who was across the street from Cook Children's in the little business, office part. And we would do the little echocardiograms, and they became pretty routine. So fast forward to about 8 months old. So Corbin's now 8 months old, and literally all of the prayer vigils and the round the clock and the friends and the people who are showing up at Cook Children's during the procedure and in those first 4 days, and the post-op for the first 12 days. And all of that in the chapel, remember all the worship we'd
Mhm.
have there, and in the waiting areas, and people bringing us meals and taking care of our kids. That had become just kind of a distant memory. It's like, man, this kid now, we got, three little ones at home. I remember Christian, he's all over Corbin, sitting
Mhm.
on him. This, our fat little, 1 year old sitting on,
Yeah,
fragile baby.
we have a picture of Corbin, like, laying on the couch, and you can see, like, his little zipper chest, and Christian's just fat and, slobbering down his chin. I mean, he's still such a baby. He's a baby with a tiny baby brother, and he's just sitting on him.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, I guess you can't make that kid
Well,
any
yep.
sicker.
Yes. Yeah. So
He just lived a normal,
yeah, he did.
normal
And
life.
that's hard for people to understand, but I mean there was no, again, the heart was good. So, heart babies, quote unquote, they call them, sometimes have a little bit harder time getting up to weight, height, weight, because the suck and swallow reflex, it hurts because of their, the surgery. And man, not Corban. Man, he was I think in the 50 or 60th percentile. So he's doing good. He's gaining weight and he's doing well and no issues. And so at one of his routine cardiology checkups post-op, I almost didn't go that day. I remember
Mhm.
thinking, you know what? He's great. He's been great. It's no problem. And something made me just change. Even though I had a full day timer, that day, I thought, no, I'm going to go. And so, as was custom, we both went. So we go down there, and during the echocardiogram, the tech said, hey, you know what? I think we need to do another one of these. I'm seeing some high pressures. Well, then here comes Dr. Case. I'm like, oh, well, he's here.
Hey.
This is always fun when the doctor shows up. He said, okay, Brian and Jamie, I told you, I don't know if you remember this part. He said it wasn't a matter of if, it was when the scar tissue from the surgery starts to impede blood flow, it could cause an issue. So picture the coronary arteries where they are attached to the left ventricle now. If you've reattached them and you've got scar tissue, it could cause blockage, just like fat would in a coronary artery, which cause high blood pressure or heart disease, stroke, whatever. So we need to go in and do, again, kind of a balloon, an angioplast, balloon septostomy, whatever, to go in and tear that scar tissue out of the way, and he'll be back in action. This is an overnight. He'll just go to the heart cath lab. He'll go in and then be home the next day. And we're like, wow, okay. I said, so when are we going to schedule this? He goes, like, right now.
Pronto.
Right now.
Walk over right now.
So yeah, he said, wait, like literally. So all this stuff on my calendar today, my schedule is so
Clear your
yeah,
calendar.
let's go. Because he said he's fragile, like he's in a dangerous state. High pressure of this, magnitude could be like a stroke or a heart attack.
Mhm.
And so we go over, we schedule the deal, and he's going to be, and that was on a Tuesday afternoon. So he was going to go in on Wednesday morning and then go home, stay there Wednesday night and go home Thursday.
Mhm.
So people start hearing about this, family, and all of a sudden friends and family. And so let's just fast forward to Wednesday, and we're down there, and all of a sudden here comes the waiting room and it's filling up. I'm like, no, guys. This isn't the 24-hour prayer vigil. This isn't the big deal. This is nothing. And I remember
Just a
so
little
badly
thing.
trying
Be
to
home
minimize
tomorrow.
this. It's all good. And there was kind of this more kind of jovial and laughing and joking around in the waiting area. And I remember them saying, okay, we're going to call out and give you updates as we go.
Mhm.
Well, and so even though you're surrounded by people and y'all are kind of giggling, laughing, and I'm trying to do that, but I just keep looking at that phone and looking at my watch and
Mhm.
looking at that phone, looking at my watch. I'm like, where are they? Why aren't they calling? What's going on? Again, long story short. So finally, after no updates, here comes a nurse saying, hey, they want to see you downstairs. So I hold your hand, we get on the elevator, and I looked at you and you gulped. And I said,
This is
this is
not
not
good.
good. You'll remember, yeah,
Mhm.
this is not good. And we go downstairs and go around the corner, and there's Dr. Case. And Dr. Case, his body language said it all, right?
Mhm.
And he said, okay, so here's the deal. This is not the place where the coronary arteries were attached. Looks great. This is not scar tissue
Mhm.
causing the high pressure in his lungs. This is a second rare disease unrelated to TGA that Corban, it'd be like winning the lottery and being struck by lightning, right? He said it's
Mhm.
called pulmonary hypertension, which some people had heard of as a secondary thing, like from Redux and FinFin, but this was a primary condition, means he was born with it. In the pulmonary bed, these blood vessels are stiff at birth and then they become more elastic over time. Well, the the disease says his aren't going to become elastic. They're going to be stiff, causing a pressure. It's harder for the blood flow into the lungs. And and there's no cure. This was and there is no really good treatment. And during this so I'm looking out the window thinking, I might just jump, literally. I just remember just feeling almost like my soul just flew out the window. And I look at you and you're about to throw up.
Oh, yeah. I remember looking over. First of all, we were in it was called the stress room. I was like, could we change the name? Like, I know this is true to form, but could we change the name? So we're in the stress room. And there was a gurney laying there, and then there was a trash can. And I'm looking back and forth at both, going, I'm either going to need that, or maybe that, then that, or both at the same time. I'm not really sure, but one of those are going to come into play, either the gurney or the trash can in the stress room. I kind of started leaving my body. It was weird what your body does. Like, nope. I cannot hear this.
Right. So we have just gotten the news that our baby, who seemed, again, when he went in, he seemed so healthy.
Oh my gosh, we were at preschool that day.
It would be like me going to the doctor and them saying, hey, by the way, you've got really high blood pressure. Or somebody who didn't know they're about to have a stroke or a heart attack, because they look great. He was symptom-free, looked great. But we just got told he has another rare disease that there is no cure for, and we are going to have to cut this episode right here. And so shot clock got us today, and I know you got to run to a meeting, so let's end there, and then we will pick up right here in the story next time. So tune in for part 4 as we complete this story. I thought this would take us at least 2 times.
I feel like there's even so much more.
There's tons, because literally we haven't even, I think we're 10% in. So, hey, I love you, baby. Thank you for sharing what you shared, and we're going to go ahead and dive in next time to tell the rest of the story.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah, there's some good stuff. We've got to go back and talk about
I know.
his name,
the naming. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And all the
so
stuff.
Much.
Literally. It's y'all are not going to believe it. So here we go.
We might need to write a book.
Well, you should.
Well, you should too.
No.
We should together.
I'll write the forward. All right, baby.
Hey,
I'll see you next time.
Okay.